can't raise taxes, can't really let debt go much higher, and yet public services are crying out for more money. The next government is inheriting an incredibly difficult legacy. The burden of taxes on the economy at a 70-year high. Public services are creaking at the seams. Record waiting lists in the National Health Service. Parts of the justice system have had nearly a halving of the number of courts that are operating.
You get the picture, and it's not a pretty one.
It's easy to see what kind of situation the UK is in today. The country is not nearly as globally influential as it once was, and its economy is becoming increasingly concentrated in a few industries that don't do a lot of good for the average Brit. The economy that led the way in the Industrial Revolution and kicked off the biggest economic boom in human history is today struggling with very real problems like poverty and drastic regional inequality. When an economy is going well, it's easy to keep it going well. Its currency will be strong, people will want to invest in it, it can borrow at low rates, and it should foster political stability, which means economic plans can be made over decades and generations, rather than rapid election cycles. When an economy is stagnating, or worse still shrinking, then its currency becomes less desirable, borrowing money becomes harder, people will avoid investing in it, and policy decisions will be made by whoever can make the biggest promises to voters who want a way out of the economic mess.
The economy. It's not going well, is it? No, the United Kingdom has had its growth expectations downgraded from what the ONS decided it would be last year. No longer are we growing at 2%. International forecasts say we're going to be bumbling on at closer to 1.5% growth. Now, when you take into account population growth, we're looking at per capita decline in our economy. Yes, it's pretty clear that the UK has been bumbling along with negligible growth for quite some time. And by many metrics, things got a little bit worse over the last 6 months this government has been in office. Business confidence down, consumer confidence down, employment down.
The UK is falling apart, and the people in charge don't seem to have a clue. Hospitals are struggling, prices are going up fast, workers are striking, and the Prime Minister is just trying to hold on. Britain doesn't feel like a strong country anymore, it feels like things are slowly falling to pieces. So how did we get here? And can it be fixed? Let's take a closer look. Let's firstly discuss the cost of living crisis. Since late 2021, the UK has faced a cost of living crisis as the prices of essentials like food, energy, and housing increased faster than wages. This left many households struggling to cover basic needs. The crisis was caused by a mix of global and local issues. After COVID-19, demand for goods rose sharply while supply chains were still recovering. The war in Ukraine made gas, oil, and key foods like wheat more expensive. Brexit contributed by disrupting trade and creating labour shortages. Lower-income households were hit hardest. Many reduced energy use, cut back on food, or turned to food banks. Demand for support services surged. Even children began helping families manage rising costs.
A lot of people actually leaving the UK.
If we pay our taxes, they should come back to benefit us in some way, shape or form.
UK might be losing its competitive edge. A lot of people have left to Portugal, to Spain, where it's nice and sunny, better than in the UK, and flats are cheaper over there too.
Can it get worse? I hope not.
The government responded with financial aid, including energy price support, direct payments, benefit increases, and extra funding for local support. Benefits and pensions rose in April 2024. To control inflation, the Bank of England raised interest rates to 5.25% by August 2023. This made mortgages and rents more expensive, adding more strain on households.
Middle-class workers really can't keep up with the rental prices going up.
Taxes changed too. National insurance was cut, but frozen tax thresholds meant many paid more overall. Middle earners saw only slight gains. Inflation has slowed, and wages are now rising faster than prices, but the crisis hasn't fully passed. Many people still feel the pressure as everyday costs remain high. Between January 2021 and May 2024, prices in the UK rose by greater amounts, compared to Germany and the US, showing that the UK's crisis has been among the worst in major economies. Now to the next part, which is the NHS crisis. The UK National Health Service, NHS, is facing a crisis that is deeply affecting patients and healthcare workers alike.
Luke, you're a successful businessman. What's gone right? What's gone wrong?
As far as I'm aware, nothing has gone right, and almost everything they've done has gone wrong. I think they are a disaster. I would accept they inherited a pretty awful set of circumstances. Post-war high levels of tax and debt, much higher interest rates than we've experienced before.
Despite being one of the largest publicly funded health services in the world, the NHS is struggling with a series of challenges that threaten its ability to deliver the care people rely on. Staff shortages have reached critical levels, with hospitals and GP surgeries experiencing long waits and overwhelmed emergency rooms. Many healthcare workers are burned out and recruitment efforts are failing to meet the demand. As a result, hospitals are forced to cut back on services, leading to even longer waiting times for patients. Patients seeking urgent care are facing increasing delays, and routine treatments and surgeries are being postponed, leading to worsening health outcomes for many. These delays are further straining the system and causing frustration among both patients and medical professionals. The financial strain on the NHS has been growing for years, and with rising demand, the situation is becoming unsustainable. The government has promised more funding, but it hasn't been enough to resolve the underlying issues. The health service is being pushed to its limits, and the pressure on healthcare workers and patients continues to grow, leaving many wondering if the NHS can survive in its current form.
The NHS isn't just in a crisis, it's in a polycrisis. It's across trust, hospitals, mental health, primary care, social care. Every part of the system is stretched to breaking point.
The problems faced by the NHS are far-reaching, affecting people of all ages. From the elderly waiting months for care to young families struggling to get timely appointments, the situation is becoming a national crisis. Despite efforts to reform the system, it remains under intense pressure, and the future of healthcare in the UK is uncertain. However, the UK isn't just struggling, it's stuck. Public services are falling apart. The economy's barely moving. Wages are flat. And yet, the people in charge keep repeating the same excuse: there's no money. But the problem isn't money. It's the mindset. Keir Starmer had a chance to challenge that mindset. When he ran for Labour leader, he promised real change. He backed higher taxes on the rich. He promised to scrap tuition fees, invest in green energy, rebuild public services, even replace the House of Lords.
I'm very pleased and proud that tomorrow we will publish the bill which will be the biggest upgrade of workers' rights in a generation. And that'll do two things, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, it will give people basic dignity at work. And secondly, it will help grow our economy, something that the last government absolutely failed on for 14 long years.
But almost every major pledge has now been dropped. Since 2009, the Bank of England has paid interest to commercial banks for holding reserves. When interest rates were low, it didn't matter much. Now, it's costing billions. Since 2021, banks have received over £70 billion from the public purse just for parking money at the Bank of England. That's more than the entire budget for universal credit. It's enough to cover millions of home insulation upgrades. It could fund a serious climate plan or transform the NHS. Other countries have stopped this. The European Central Bank introduced tiered reserves. It cut interest payments on most reserves to zero, saving billions. The Bank of England could do the same. It could save £55 billion in just 5 years. But it won't, because politicians here have locked themselves into rules that reward cuts and punish investment. Rules that say building hospitals or retrofitting homes is risky, but handing billions to banks is fine.
Have you been impacted by Brexit?
Well, we all have. Of course we have, yes. I mean, if the cost of living is a reflection of what Brexit was all about, well, it's been a disaster, quite frankly.
Labour knows this. But instead of rewriting the rules, they're surrendering to them. They say the country's broke. It isn't. It's failing. Starmer didn't just drop a few pledges. He backed away from the fight that actually matters, the fight to fix a broken economic system. And until someone's willing to challenge the rules themselves, nothing will really change. Britain isn't broke. It's trapped by choices. And it's time we started making better ones. Now, is there any solution to UK's crisis? The last decade has been rough. 5 prime ministers in 9 years. Broken promises. Scandals. Skyrocketing costs. And a public that feels increasingly unheard. That's the chaos Starmer has inherited. And fixing it won't be easy. But none of that matters if people can't afford their groceries or get a hospital appointment. Starmer's government has almost no financial room to play with. Every move now has to be strategic. That's why Labour's focusing on long-term investments in clean energy, transport, and British industry. The goal is to rebuild the economy, not through handouts, but by restoring productivity. It's bold. But will it be fast enough? Because the public is tired. They want results, not more speeches. If things don't start improving soon, this wave of goodwill could collapse just as quickly as it arrived.
How many more houses do we have to build? How many more are they going to be putting in the hospitals? Are they going to be putting more surgeries? So that's my main concern, how we're going to be able to cope, because we're not really coping now, are we?
Internationally, there won't be big changes. The UK will stay firm on Ukraine. It's all about showing the world that Britain is back to being stable and reliable. And when it comes to the EU, no, the UK isn't rejoining the single market or the customs union. But Labour does want a closer relationship, better trade terms, professional recognition, maybe even a youth mobility scheme. Meanwhile, Labour wants to shake up how the UK is run. From reforming the House of Lords to expanding voting access to creating a new Council of the Nations and Regions. If they actually pull it off, it could change how democracy works in the UK. But everything's urgent now. The risk is huge. If inflation rises again, if negotiations with the EU fall apart, if internal party drama takes over, the whole thing could unravel. The public has seen this show before. They won't wait forever.
I've tried to get into work in different places, and all it is now is agency, minimum wage, when really it should be concentrating on local people, getting them in, training them up.
So, can anything turn things around? Maybe, but only if Labour stays focused. Only if it turns calm leadership into real results. And only if it earns the public's trust with actions, not just words. Stability, credibility, and time, that's what Starmer has right now. What he does with it will decide everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments, we want to hear what you think. If you want to stay updated on the latest developments in the UK crisis, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.